Hey everyone, it's Rob Adams of the Actors Workshop, and finally we are back with another episode of In the Abyss. I know it's been a while and they're few and far between, and that's because when we started all of these a year and a half ago, it was because of all the downtime because of COVID and lockdowns and not being able to get into class as much. So I was putting these together for the students and that kind of thing. But now that we have been back in person and full go and doing all of those kinds of things, a lot of the teachings and stuff that is going on in person. With that being said, I do like the videos because they're reference points, right? You can go back and you can, reference things we've talked about in class or reference things we've talked about in these videos in the past and so on and so forth. And also, it's good to cover movies. It's good to cover things that I'm watching, that we should be watching or learning from. And, it's October. It's one of my favorite movie months. As you remember, last year in October, I watched a horror film or like a thriller film, a slasher film, whatever, every single night of the month of October, 31 movies in 31 days. I was trying to figure out how I did that, and then I realized with all the things going on last year, I had a lot of free time. This year, I'm a lot busier, and I don't have as much time, but I'm trying to get as many films in as possible. So today being October 15th, I've only gotten 5 films in so far. I want to at least get, if I could get 10 films more in the next 15, 16 days, that'd be ideal, so I can get at least 15 in for the month, and that's my goal. It's not a promise, but that's my goal. So today's theme, I did some older films, things from the late 30s, early 40s, and then one film from the early 60s. But the one thing that is constant when you watch these films is, in a different era of time, the acting was different. Some of these people were theater actors that they were putting in front of the camera, so they were a little busy in their face and so on. And then you have the ones who are a little bit more natural and a little bit more real and understood, the camera and that kind of stuff. But the one constant, no matter what you have, is these actors and actresses believed in what was happening. They were living it. They were in the moment, living that reality. And, last night we talked about in class about stepping into the shoes of the person you are portraying or playing, right? I hate using the word playing because we're not really playing it, we're portraying it, we're living it. And it's like when you wear, your tennis shoes every day, and then all of a sudden there's that one day where you have to put dress shoes on, it's a different feel, it's a different fit, but it's still you wearing those shoes. And that's kind of what I'm pushing across to our actors is live in that moment, live in that reality, live what's going on, because the more you can do that, the more real your work becomes, right? And then you can just deal with the other actors and actresses that you're working with, and it just takes over, and there's a reality, there's a comfort level to what you're doing. It really is a mentality. Right? It really is. What's your mindset? What are you going through mentally when you're dealing with this? In real life, the mindset is this is our reality, so we live it. Right? And then you get in front of a camera or you get a script and you get to see, and your mind and the wheels want to turn rather than your mind just telling you, this is your reality, live it. And that's what we need to do is live in that reality. So our theme today, and I try to tie themes in to these movies. If you watch last year's episodes, we did the same thing, is live it. Live it in the moment. Live the moment. Live the reality. Live. This is where you are at this point in time. So I'll go over the 5 movies I've watched so far. It's just showing you what I'm watching. It's just showing you what, different movies you probably never heard of that exist. And if you want to check him out, fantastic. I know Omar does. And if you don't, at least learn from the actors and actresses we're talking about. So the first one is from 1944. It's The Lodger. Kino Lorber, which, I've shown, I've had unboxings, and actually I ordered 8 more yesterday, so we'll have an unboxing coming up. They're very similar to Criterion, where they restore these old films, but unlike Criterion, where Criterion really dots the I's and crosses the T's, it really comes down to what they have available and what scans they're able to get, and are they able to do a new 2K scan or a 4K or whatever they're able to do, or is it a remaster of an old print? They really do a good job of bringing some of these old films that you would never have heard of back to life. And there was a group of these that I ordered a year ago, and we probably talked about these in the unboxing when they had a bunch of horror thriller films available, and I bought a bunch. Finally getting around to watching them. I think I bought these like in November of last year during the Noir-vember, that episode that you can find on there. But anyways, The Lodger is about a guy who rents a room at this house. And it's at the same period of time when the Jack the Ripper is on the streets of London. And they kind of, what's cool about these older movies is they make you feel like this guy could be Jack the Ripper. But then they make you feel like you're unsure. It's not as cut and dry. It's not as black and white as they do films today. They actually had some creativity because they had to. They didn't have green screen. They didn't have the technology. So they had to get creative with lighting and camera shots and how they did things. And so a lot of these movies are really centralized in very few locations. But still have that feel of, is it him or is it not? And it's cool because at the end of the movie, they leave it open, which they should, because we still don't know who Jack the Ripper was. So there's no way you can sit there and say, yep, he was Jack the Ripper, right? You have to leave it like, could he have been Jack the Ripper? But, it's a mystery thriller while Jack the Ripper is roaming the streets but instead of it being prostitutes he's killing, it's actresses, and the lead lady is an actress in the movie as well, and the lodger is fond of her, which makes you feel like that means he has to be Jack the Ripper. But once again, without ruining the end, you really don't know until you don't know. There's no until. It's open for interpretation, and that's what you want. It's a good pacing movie. It's fun, and it gives you a little twist on the Jack the Ripper story. Next up was a year later, 1945, and it's Hangover Square. The same lead actress. I'm not sure if it's the same lead actor, but it's definitely the same lead actress, and it's directed by John Braham, which is he did both. So in this one, which is kind of cool, is the lead actress. She in The Lodger is very likable, very friendly, whereas in Hangover Square, she's kind of a user. She's trying to advance her career in singing by using this guy who's a composer, and what happens to him is he has mental lapses, and when things happen, when he has these mental lapses, things happen and people get injured and killed and stuff, and you don't know if he's doing it. Once again, it's kind of a play on these things, or if it's not him and it's just a coincidence. But anyways, he's a composer, and she uses him to write music for her songs. And by the end, he's doing his concerto at the end, and the way they do the music, I played it in class the other day, they really build a darkness and a eeriness to the end of the movie with an unbelievable conclusion, like a 10-minute conclusion. But the way they tie in his concerto to the actual final music and the final scenes is pretty phenomenal. And it's cool because this is a great acting lesson. She doesn't change. She's exactly the same, except this time she's a manipulator user. And that's just, that's what she does. And her justification, we're talking about justifications in class last night. Her justification is she's helping her career, right? Whereas in the other one, she's just a kind actress who's very friendly and nice to everybody, and it is what it is. So, once again, it has that feel of old school Hollywood, and it's really cool. After the credits, it gives a little blurb, and I'm paraphrasing, but it talks about how they're sending copies of these films overseas for the soldiers to see, because this is toward the end of World War II, So these films were out during World War II, and it's kind of neat to see the original print and what people saw in the theaters at this period of time. It kind of just takes you back to a period of time, which is pretty cool. The other thing that's really cool about these movies is they're not super long. I think we have so many movies that are so long and so drawn out these days. You can't really just watch the film and it just, it's drawn out. These films are, 75 minutes, 80 minutes, right? We're in or out, right? And you get great, continuing pace to these films. They don't drag because you got to get all the stuff in a short period of time. Another, like I said, it says passion, obsession, insanity, murder. It's one of those things that builds up to, one of those suspense thrillers, and very similar because it's shot by the same director. You get those different angles and the way they do the roving cameras and stuff. It's pretty cool to see. But what's cool, like talking about living in the moment, when she's that actress and she's nice and she's friendly to everybody, she's living that moment. That's just who she is. When she's that user, she doesn't see it that way. She's just trying to further her career. And what I love about it is that she doesn't change. It's just using a different side of her. Now she's in that manipulation pair of shoes and she's just trying to do what she does. And that's the point. Live in that moment. All right, the third one. So I have several Region B Blu-rays. Region A is what you get in the United States. Play a Blu-ray player, it's Region A. Region B is Europe. And so I have several of these Region Bs, and you know what they are because they have these logos on the front of the Blu-ray cases. So last, I think December, Christmas time or whatever, I bought a region-free Blu-ray player so I could finally watch some of these. So I was super excited. So even though I had the Blu-ray player for, the last 8 months, finally broke out my first Region B to watch. Player worked, got to watch it. And then the next day when I put a Region A in, it said I forgot to switch it over, and it told me that it only plays Region B disc, so I had to flip it over. So the machine works as planned, which is fantastic. But I went with Edgar Allan Poe's The Haunted Palace, starring Vincent Price. If you watched any of my videos, I love Vincent Price. I love his movies. I love he just was the guy, like Bela Lugosi was, and Boris Karloff was, and Lon Chaney Jr., how they were in the 30s and the 20s and stuff, in the early 40s. He was to these movies in the 60s. And once again, I love these movies where they're in one location. A lot of the actors in this movie play dual roles because it happens over 100 years. So it's the regular people at the beginning, and then they play the ancestors of the people later on in the movie. But there's periods of time where Vincent Price just has to flip that switch, right? He goes from being the nice, loving husband to, somebody who is psychotic. And his eyes change and his conviction changes and his energy changes, but he never changes. He's always Vincent Price. And I was playing some clips of Vincent Price in class the other day, from his speech at the end of the Thriller song to him doing speeches in his movies, and you hear a constant. You always hear his voice, even to the point we were playing him talking in the episode of the Brady Bunch he did when they were in Hawaii and he was the guy in the cave, and I played those, and you listen to him, you're like, Vincent Price. He sounds like Vincent Price. His cadence is Vincent Price. His voice is Vincent Price. That's who he is. That's who he was. And he owned that, and that's what made him such a legend. I have about 3 of these in the queue to watch in the next 15 days on the Region B. But just a terrific film with an eerie feeling, the music, the story, being in the old castle, just really, really cool. I highly recommend it. All right, and so the last 2 I did was I did back-to-back Bob Hope, Pollock Goddard movies, and so you get the suspense thriller with a little splash of comedy. We all know Bob Hope, and if you don't, there's a problem there. Pollock Goddard, she was one of those early era actresses. She was in Modern Times with Charlie Chaplin. She was in The Great Dictator with Charlie Chaplin. And then she did, a few films with Bob Hope in the early 30s and late 40s. And then even was in the Chaplin film in 1992 with Robert Downey Jr. So, you know, she had quite a career. She was a starlet of the time. She had the it factor. When she was on screen, you wanted to watch her. And she's fantastic. So the first one I watched was The Cat and the Canary. Once again, it's located just in a house. All these people are gathering for a reading of a will 10 years after the person's death, because that's when he wanted his will read. And then it's all the things happening in this house. It kind of gives you a feel of how, like, the movie Clue was. You can see elements when you watch newer movies like Clue of where they took ideas from movies like this. Bob Hope was so good because everything he dealt with was real, and he had such a comedic timing that and wit that when he could throw a splash of that in, it came across, and there was times where it made me giggle watching him and how he did things, but also the reality of what they're dealing with made it a good suspense thriller and give you that feel of what is going on in this house, who is the killer, who's doing what they're doing, just like the movie Clue. 1939, and it ends up, you know, being that suspense thriller, but also a love story at the same time. And they were so good together that the next one I did was 1940, Bob Hope, Pollock Goddard in The Ghost Breakers. And I was kind of hoping that this was like a continuation where they were playing the same parts they were in The Cat and the Canary. Unfortunately, that's not what they did. It is a separate movie with different parts. But what's interesting is Bob Hope is basically the same guy he was in Cat and the Canary, and Pollock Goddard is the same person she was in The Cat and the Canary, just different. And what I mean by different is they have different jobs, they have different reasonings for what they're doing, right? So in Cat and the Canary, they're coming to the house for the reading of the will. In The Ghost Breakers, she's inherited a house in Cuba, and so she's going to Havana to see this house that's supposedly haunted, right? And the story with them is how they meet up, and suspense, thriller, has a little splash of comedy, and eventually kind of evolves into a love story as well. They are tremendous together, and fortunately we have these two back-to-back, 1939, 1940, and then they did one more, and the title of the movie slips my mind, but I wish we would have gotten a little bit more from them. They were terrific together. But at least we have these, and they're really good. And so if you're not really into the slasher films, or you're not really into the older films, at least you get, a little bit of a romantic comedy mixed in with horror suspense. I highly recommend trying The Cat and the Canary and The Ghost Breakers. Watch them in order: The Cat and the Canary and then The Ghost Breakers, 39 and 40. Because they're both really good, and like I said, the acting between the two of them is tremendous. There's also an actor that plays Bob Hope's assistant in The Ghost Breakers, a gentleman named Willie Best, and he had me rolling the whole time. His timing and his delivery and the way he used Bob Hope was tremendous. It's well worth it just to watch him as well. But they just do a good job with the casting. They just do a good job with the chemistry. They just do a good job. And like I said, I wish that I would have been able to watch more up to this point, but I've just been really busy. I will for sure power through and get a lot more in, so we can discuss those and talk about those in the future of this month, in the next couple weeks. So anyways, I hope this is a good start. I hope everybody's having a good time. Everybody's being safe. Everybody's doing good. Watch movies. My actors, watch movies. This is how you learn. You learn different things, and you watch different things, and you try different things. But that's the goal. So, and remember, live it. Not only live it, live the moment, right? So if you're mentally living it and then you're dealing in the moments and you're living that moment, right? The reality will take over, and then you just deal like human beings deal, and it takes off. The brain goes away, the instincts are in play, and you go. And now you start dealing with stuff, and acting becomes truthful and real. Remember, live it in the moment. Live in the moment. All right, that's it for now. I will see you hopefully in a week or so with my next episode, at least an unboxing, if not more with more movies I'm watching. All right, have a great weekend, and we'll see you soon.